When my son orchestrated a dinner party to publicly humiliate me for refusing to pay for his luxury wedding, I realized I no longer knew the man I had raised. Winston sits alone in his study, twilight filtering through dusty windows. His weathered hands rest on an old photo dot. Atticus was supposed to be my legacy. 42 years of bedtime stories, little league games, and college tuition payments. I taught him integrity, compassion, the value of hard work. But somewhere between law school and his corner office, he became someone else entirely. $150,000. That's what he demanded for his wedding. When I explained I couldn't afford it, he smiled that cold smile and said he understood. But understanding wasn't what he had in mind. I am a 74-year-old widower who spent 40 years as a mechanical engineer and 31 years as a father. My name is Winston. I live alone in the house where my wife Cordelia and I raised our 2 children. The mortgage is nearly paid off. The garden needs work I can no longer afford. My son Atticus graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Law. He drives a BMW and wears suits that cost more than my monthly pension. He works at Morrison, Klein, and Associates downtown. Partner track, he always says. Always climbing. My daughter Hermione teaches 3rd grade and visits every Sunday with homemade soup and stories about her students. She worries about me living alone. She worries about everything. 3 months ago, I received a diagnosis that changed my perspective on many things. Stage 2 lung cancer. Treatable, Dr. Pemberton assured me, but expensive. The treatments would cost $40,000 over 18 months. My insurance covers 60%. I had been setting aside money from my pension for 2 years. Not much, but enough. Enough to give myself a fighting chance without becoming a burden to my children. That was my plan until April 15th. The doorbell rang at 2 in the afternoon. I was in the kitchen sorting through medical bills and insurance paperwork. The cherry blossoms outside the window had bloomed early that year. Cordelia always said they bloomed when change was coming. Atticus stood on my doorstep in his charcoal suit, briefcase in hand. He looked successful, confident, everything I had hoped he would become when he was small and dreamed of being a lawyer like the ones on television. He hugged me briefly. His cologne was expensive. His handshake was firm and practiced. We sat in the living room, where he used to do homework at the coffee table, where Cordelia used to read him stories before bed, where we opened Christmas presents and celebrated birthdays and argued about curfews. He placed his briefcase on the floor, straightened his tie, smiled that professional smile I had seen him use with clients. "Dad, I need to talk to you about the wedding." Scarlett Morrison, daughter of Judge Morrison. Beautiful, educated, connected to all the right families. They had been dating for 3 years. The engagement ring cost more than my car. Scarlett's family has certain expectations, he continued. The venue they've chosen is the Riverside Country Club. The reception will be in the grand ballroom. 200 guests. He pulled out a folder from his briefcase. Pages of estimates and contracts. Numbers that made my chest tighten. The total cost is $150,000. Scarlett's parents are contributing $75,000. I need you to cover the rest. $150,000. I stared at the papers spread across my coffee table. Flowers for $12,000. Photography for $8,000. A dress for $15,000. Numbers that meant nothing to him, but everything to me. "Atticus, I can't afford that." His smile never wavered. "I know it seems like a lot, but this is an investment in our future. The connections we'll make, the opportunities that will open up. Judge Morrison has already mentioned introducing me to his golf partners. I thought about the medical bills hidden in my kitchen drawer, the treatments I had been postponing, the choice between fighting for my life and funding his perfect wedding. Son, you don't understand. I have medical expenses, significant ones. The money I've saved, it's already spoken for. He leaned forward. His eyes were kind, but determined. What kind of medical expenses? You seem fine to me. I had not told him about the cancer, had not told anyone except Hermione and Dr. Pemberton. The words felt heavy in my throat. I'm sick, Atticus. Lung cancer. I need surgery and chemotherapy. The treatments will cost everything I have. For a moment, his professional mask slipped. I saw surprise, then concern, then something else. Calculation. How long have you known? 3 months. He nodded slowly. What's the prognosis? Good, if I can afford the treatment. Dr. Pemberton says I have an excellent chance of full recovery. He was quiet for a long time. His fingers drummed against his knee, a habit he had developed in law school. Dad, I understand this is difficult, but you need to think about priorities. This wedding, it's not just about one day. It's about Scarlett and me building a life together, building a future. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. My life is the priority, Atticus. Of course it is, but you're 74. You've lived a full life. This is my chance to start mine properly. The words hung in the air between us. I looked at my son, this man I had raised, and saw a stranger. I won't take money from a sick man, I said quietly. He stood up, smoothed his jacket, and picked up his briefcase. I'm not asking you to give me money, Dad. I'm asking you to invest in your son's happiness. He walked to the door, then turned back. Think about it. You have 2 weeks to decide. But remember, family helps family. After he left, I sat in the living room for a long time. The cherry blossoms outside were already beginning to fall. 2 weeks passed without a word from Atticus. I scheduled my first chemotherapy session for the following month. Dr. Pemberton was optimistic. The treatments would begin in May. I had made my choice, my life over his wedding. Then Hermione called. Dad, I'm having a family dinner this Sunday. Just us, like when Mom was alive. Her voice was warm, hopeful. She had been trying to bring the family together since Cordelia's funeral, always the peacemaker, always believing that food and conversation could heal any wound. I'll make Mom's roast beef recipe, the one with the horseradish sauce you love. I agreed. Sunday dinner sounded perfect, quiet, intimate, a chance to tell her about the cancer properly, a chance to explain why I couldn't help Atticus. Sunday arrived gray and drizzling. I wore my best sweater, the navy one Cordelia had bought me for Christmas 3 years ago. I brought flowers from the garden, daffodils that had survived the late frost. The first sign something was wrong was the cars. 8 of them lined Hermione's driveway. Expensive cars, Mercedes, Lexus. Another BMW that looked like Atticus's. My stomach dropped. This was not a quiet family dinner. I sat in my old Honda for several minutes. Rain tapped against the windshield. I could see figures moving behind the curtains, shadows of people I did not recognize. I should have driven home, should have trusted my instincts. But Hermione had worked so hard on dinner, she would be disappointed if I left. I walked to the front door, rang the bell, heard laughter and conversation from inside. Too much conversation for a family dinner. Hermione opened the door. She was beautiful in her blue dress. Her smile was bright but nervous. Behind her, I could see a room full of people. Dad, you made it. Come in. Come in. The living room was packed. Scarlett's parents sat on the couch. Judge Morrison in his expensive suit, his wife in pearls and silk, Atticus's colleagues from the law firm, people I barely recognized from various family events over the years. 23 people. I counted them while Hermione took my coat. "Everyone, my father's here," she announced. They turned to look at me, smiles and nods, greetings that felt rehearsed. I was the guest of honor at a party I had not known existed. Atticus appeared at my elbow, his hand on my shoulder, his smile wide and welcoming. "Dad, so glad you could make it. I've been telling everyone about your retirement, how you're enjoying your golden years." Golden years. The phrase felt like a slap. We moved to the dining room. Hermione had outdone herself. The table was set with Cordelia's good china, crystal glasses, cloth napkins. The roast beef was perfect. The horseradish sauce was exactly as I remembered. I was seated at the head of the table, the position of honor. Judge Morrison to my right, Scarlett's mother to my left, Atticus and Scarlett across from me. The conversation flowed around me. Stories about golf games and vacation homes, discussion of stock portfolios and real estate investments. I nodded and smiled and felt increasingly out of place. These people lived in a different world, a world where $150,000 was a reasonable wedding budget, where medical bills were not a concern, where fathers were expected to fund their children's dreams without question. The wine was expensive, the kind Cordelia and I had only bought for special occasions. It flowed freely. Everyone was relaxed, happy, celebrating something I did not understand. Then dessert arrived. Hermione's famous chocolate cake, the one she had learned to make from Cordelia's handwritten recipe. She was proud of it, proud of the entire evening. Atticus stood up, raised his wine glass. The room fell silent. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight to celebrate with Scarlett and me." Celebrate. This was a celebration. But what were we celebrating? "Your support means everything to us as we plan our future together." I felt the first stirring of unease. This was not a casual dinner. This was orchestrated, planned, deliberate. Unfortunately, I have some disappointing news to share. The room grew quieter, all eyes on Atticus. His voice carried easily. He had always been good at public speaking. "My father has decided not to contribute to our wedding." The words hit me like a physical blow. The silence that followed was complete. 23 people staring at me, judging me, waiting for my response. Some parents believe their children's happiness is worth investing in. His voice was calm, reasonable, disappointed, but understanding. Others have different priorities. He shrugged, a small gesture that spoke volumes. He was giving me a chance to explain myself, to justify my selfishness to this room full of successful people. Judge Morrison cleared his throat. "Well, I'm sure Winston has his reasons." Scarlett's mother sipped her wine. "Family dynamics can be complicated." One of Atticus's colleagues nodded sympathetically. Economic pressures affect everyone differently. They were being kind, diplomatic. But I could see the judgment in their eyes, the confusion. What kind of father refuses to help his son get married? Hermione looked mortified. She had not known this was coming. She had been used just as I had been used. Atticus remained standing, glass raised, waiting. "Perhaps you'd like to explain to everyone why you've chosen not to support our wedding, Dad." The room waited. The silence stretched. I could hear the grandfather clock in the hallway, the rain against the windows, my own heartbeat. This was his plan, this public humiliation, This forced confession of my selfishness in front of people whose opinions mattered to him. He wanted me to admit that I was choosing my own comfort over his happiness, that I was too selfish to make the sacrifice a loving father should make. Or he wanted me to change my mind, to be so embarrassed by the judgment of these strangers that I would agree to pay for his wedding. I looked at my son, this man I had raised, this stranger who had orchestrated my public humiliation. 23 people waited for my answer. I reached into my jacket pocket. My fingers found the manila envelope I had brought with me, the one I had hoped I would never need to open. But I had not come to this dinner unprepared. I had not come as the naive father Atticus believed me to be. 3 weeks earlier, something had bothered me about our conversation. Something beyond his callous dismissal of my cancer diagnosis. Something about the numbers he had thrown around so casually. $150,000 for a wedding. $75,000 from Judge Morrison. $75,000 from me. The math was simple, but Atticus made $60,000 a year at the law firm. Even with Scarlett's income as a marketing coordinator, they pulled in maybe $90,000 combined. How do you plan a $150,000 wedding on $90,000 a year? I had started asking questions, quiet questions, careful questions. My old friend Harold worked in banking, had worked there for 30 years before retirement. He owed me favors from our engineering days, small favors that added up over time. Just curious about my son's financial situation, I told him. Want to make sure he's managing his money responsibly. Harold had made some calls, pulled some strings, asked some questions of his own. The first red flag was the credit cards, 7 of them, all maxed out. Total debt of $43,000. The second red flag was the car payments. The BMW lease was $800 a month, more than my mortgage payment. The third red flag was the apartment, downtown loft, $2,000 a month. Hardwood floors and granite countertops and a view of the river. Living beyond his means, way beyond his means. But the fourth red flag was the one that changed everything. Harold had a contact at Morrison, Klein & Associates, someone in accounting who had noticed irregularities in the client trust fund. Small withdrawals, always under $10,000 to avoid reporting requirements. $47,000 over 6 months, all authorized by Atticus Morrison, all for personal use. Embezzlement. My son was stealing from his clients. I had spent 3 weeks hoping Harold was wrong, hoping there was an explanation, hoping my son was not the man the evidence suggested he was. But the evidence was undeniable. Bank records, withdrawal slips, financial statements that painted a picture of a man living a lie. I had brought the evidence to dinner, not to use it, not to hurt him, but to understand him. Now, sitting at Hermione's table with 23 pairs of eyes judging me, I understood everything perfectly. This dinner was not about embarrassing me into paying for his wedding. This dinner was about creating witnesses. People who would remember that his father had refused to help him. People who would testify to his character when the embezzlement came to light. Atticus was building his defense. Poor young lawyer whose own father would not support him, driven to desperate measures by family abandonment. I stood up slowly. My knees creaked. The room watched me with the intensity of a courtroom. Atticus, before I respond to your assessment of my character, I think everyone here should know why you really need this money. His smile faltered, just slightly, just enough for me to see. I don't understand, Dad. I opened the manila envelope, pulled out the bank statements, the withdrawal records, the evidence of 6 months of systematic theft. $47,000 from the client trust fund at Morrison, Klein and Associates. The color drained from his face. Judge Morrison leaned forward. Scarlett's mother set down her wine glass. The Henderson Estate Account, the Morrison Family Trust, the Pemberton Settlement Fund. His mouth opened, closed. No words came out. All of it funding a lifestyle you could not afford. All of it stolen from people who trusted you. Hermione gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. She looked from me to Atticus and back again. That's not true, Atticus said quietly. I spread the documents across the table, over Hermione's good china, over the remains of Cordelia's recipe. First National Bank, account number ending in 4721, your personal account. 47 deposits over 6 months, all from client funds. Judge Morrison stood up. His face was pale. Harold, is this true? Harold. Judge Morrison's first name was Harold. Different Harold than my banking friend, but the same shocked expression, the same realization that everything he thought he knew was wrong. I was going to replace it, Atticus whispered. The Henderson settlement comes through next month. I was going to replace every penny. The room erupted, voices talking over each other, chairs scraping against the floor. Someone mentioned the Bar Association. Someone else mentioned criminal charges. Scarlett was crying, quiet tears that streaked her makeup, her perfect future crumbling in real time. This is why you needed the wedding money, I said. Not for flowers or photographers or reception halls, for restitution, to replace what you stole before anyone noticed. He nodded, barely. A tiny movement that confirmed everything. And this dinner was not about embarrassing me. It was about creating witnesses, people who would remember that your own father abandoned you, people who would testify to your character when the charges were filed. Judge Morrison was already on his phone, calling someone, probably the district attorney, probably the Bar Association. Atticus looked at me with something I had never seen before. Not anger, not disappointment, fear. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. But sorry was not enough. Sorry did not undo 6 months of theft. Sorry did not heal the trust he had broken. Sorry did not cure my cancer, or pay for my treatments, or give me back the son I thought I had raised. The dinner party dissolved into chaos. People leaving, conversations in hushed tones. Hermione trying to clean up while crying into her apron. I gathered my documents, put them back in the envelope, walked to the door. Behind me I could hear Atticus trying to explain, trying to justify, trying to salvage something from the wreckage of his own making. But I was done listening, done hoping, done believing in the man I had wanted him to be. The rain had stopped. The cherry blossoms were gone. Change had come just as Cordelia had predicted. I drove home through empty streets. The rain had stopped, but the pavement was still wet. Streetlights reflected in puddles like broken promises. My phone rang before I reached my driveway. Hermione's number. I let it ring. It rang again as I unlocked my front door. Then again as I hung up my coat. I turned the phone off and set it on the kitchen counter next to the medical bills. The house felt different now. Quieter. The silence had weight to it. I sat in Cordelia's chair, the one by the window where she used to read, where she used to worry about the children when they were late coming home, where she used to plan family dinners that brought us together instead of tearing us apart. The cherry tree outside was bare now. All the blossoms had fallen. The ground beneath it was carpeted with pink petals turning brown. 3 hours later, Hermione knocked on my door. Her eyes were red from crying. She had changed out of her blue dress into jeans and a sweater. She looked younger, tired. Dad, we need to talk. I let her in. made coffee while she sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Atticus had spread his wedding estimates 3 weeks ago. "Is it true? What you said about the money?" I showed her the documents, all of them. She read through each page carefully, her teacher's training showing in the way she absorbed information. "Oh, Atticus," she whispered, "what have you done?" The coffee grew cold while she cried. I held her hand across the table, the same hand I had held when she was 7 and afraid of thunderstorms. "Judge Morrison called the district attorney," she said, "and the bar association. Atticus could lose his license. He could go to jail. Could, not would." She was still hoping for a miracle. Scarlett broke off the engagement, left her ring on the table, and walked out. She was humiliated. Her whole family was humiliated. I felt no satisfaction in hearing this, no vindication, only sadness for the waste of it all. "He's talking about rehab. Gambling addiction, he says. Says that's where the money went." I thought about the BMW, the downtown loft, the expensive suits and dinners and lifestyle he could not afford. "He's lying, Hermione." She nodded. She knew. She had always been able to see through his charm to the truth beneath. "He wants to see you, to apologize properly, to explain." "There's nothing to explain." "Dad, he's still your son." Number. The son I raised would never have done this. The son I raised would have asked for help before stealing from clients, would have lived within his means, would have chosen honesty over appearances. She was quiet for a long time. Finally, she squeezed my hand. "What about your treatments? Will you be able to afford them now?" I had been thinking about that, about the cost of choosing truth over family harmony. "I'll manage. Dr. Pemberton knows about payment plans. The insurance covers most of it." "I can help. I have some savings." "You keep your savings. You'll need them for your own family someday." She smiled through her tears. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, sweetheart." After she left, I sat in the living room where this all began, where Atticus had asked for money he did not deserve for a wedding he could not afford. I thought about the man I had raised, the boy who had cried when his goldfish died, who had insisted on saying prayers for homeless people he saw on the street, who had worked 3 jobs to pay for law school because he wanted to help people. That boy was gone, had been gone for years. I had just been too blind to see it. My phone buzzed. A text message from a number I did not recognize. "Dad, this is Atticus. Changed my number. Can we talk? I need to explain everything. I need you to understand." I deleted the message without responding. Another message came an hour later. "Please, Dad, I'm scared. I don't know what to do." I deleted that one too. A third message at midnight. "I'm sorry. I know you hate me. I hate me too." I turned the phone off. The next morning I started chemotherapy. Dr. Pemberton was optimistic. The treatments were working. My body was responding well. Hermione visited twice a week, brought soup and stories from school. Never mentioned Atticus unless I asked. I never asked. 3 months later, I read in the newspaper that he had been disbarred, lost his license to practice law. The article was small, page 6 of the local section, easy to miss if you were not looking for it. No mention of jail time. He had made full restitution, paid back every penny with interest, his trust fund probably, or Judge Morrison's guilty conscience. 6 months later, Hermione told me he was working at a hardware store, living in a studio apartment across town, taking the bus to work. "He asks about you," she said. "Wonders how you're doing." "I'm doing fine." "He's changed, Dad, really changed. He goes to meetings, volunteers at the food bank. He's trying to become a better person. Maybe he was. Maybe losing everything had taught him what nothing else could. But some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. Some trust, once broken, cannot be repaired. I had raised him to be honest, to be responsible, to understand that actions have consequences. He had learned that lesson finally, but the price was everything we had ever been to each other. My treatments ended in December. Clean bill of health. Dr. Pemberton used the word remission, said I could expect many more years if I took care of myself. I was grateful for the time I had been given, grateful for Hermione's love and support, grateful for the strength to choose truth over comfort. The cherry tree bloomed again the following spring, earlier than usual, just as Cordelia had predicted. Change was coming, but this time I was ready for it. I had learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable the people we love most. Sometimes the hardest choice is the right choice. Sometimes the cost of truth is everything we hold dear. But integrity cannot be bought, character cannot be inherited, and love without boundaries is not love at all. I sit in my chair by the window now, watching the seasons change, watching the world continue to turn. My son made his choices. I made mine. And somehow, in the quiet of my empty house, I have found peace.